What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I think this is going to be the last podcast for today, but the thought just came to me when talking about robotics. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about robotics and a few other points that I wanted to make in regards to the topic of artificial intelligence. And so I think one of the things that I don't even know if the people who are, kind of pioneering the robotics, specter here, that when you are creating a robot, and obviously we pretty much know that these robots are going to get better and better. I mean, there's no reason for us to really doubt that, these robots they're not going to continue to pursue these, types of things and try to improve them. And it doesn't seem that there would be really any wall that they would hit as far as getting them to be developed as best as they can. And so I think just the very creation of robots really speaks to how there is a creator behind, everything. And I think the people who are building these robotics don't necessarily realize that, this is what they are really showing the world. At least, obviously, they're really showing God that they, really, going back to Romans chapter 1 and 2, that they do know that there is a God, but they are denying. And I think obviously God knows that, but we as people don't always think of other people as knowing that they know that there is a God, but blatantly denying him. And so I think one of the things that robotics really tells us, amongst many other things, is that these people are showing that, to even create another human being, basically, which I believe is, one way to look at robotics, if you want to think about it like that. It takes a intelligent source, a being, to create it, not a random chance, explosion. I don't know. They probably have done the experiments of trying to create something from an explosion or something like that. But, also you would sort of challenge these scientists and saying, hey, why don't you, why do you, put so much precision and study and method behind creating something like a robot? And why not just try to do it by chance in some way of, just sort of pulling these things out of a hat and creating something out of nothing, from, some sort of random chance process. But yet, no, they're not really doing that. They are showing that, there is a creator behind even us as people, even though obviously, robots do show that they have their limitations as far as, they're not as advanced as people are, but on some levels, they are really trying to get there. And obviously, I've seen some videos of robots doing things that even many people cannot do. When you talk about a robot, I know the company Boston Dynamics has a few of their videos showing robots doing all these flips and doing these crazy maneuvers that actually many people cannot do, and I know that I cannot do. And so I think this really brings me into another point, that at some point a lie I think becomes sort of ridiculous, and you know, they don't even try to hide what they're doing at some point. I mean, when you really think about, Revelation chapter 13, where people are worshiping the beast, and in some ways, it really describes them blatantly worshiping Satan. I know I've seen a few videos of actually, sort of this group that does actually straight up worship Satan. And so, they have their own lies in regards to, what they say about their group. They try to say like, oh, we don't really worship Satan. We just call it, a Satan group. And, we are basically, don't really believe in the existence of Satan type of thing. But yet they call their group that, Satan group. And obviously, they are being misleading even when they talk about, what their group, really stands for and different things like that. And so it's interesting that, in Revelation 13, basically, when people start taking the mark of the beast and, worshiping the image of the beast, they're not really hiding what they're doing anymore. And, the whole talk on robotics and, having that realization that, even when people create a robot, it shows that there is need of a creator for the world and the earth and people themselves. And it really brought me to another point of how what I'm sharing now is that eventually, I guess one way to put it is that the truth comes out even in the midst of a lie, but also it's it's kind of the point that, at some point a lie, breaks down, and now, the people are just straight up telling you like, hey, I am literally just rebelling against God, instead of having, these little doors that you have to kind of try to unlock in order to get to the greater truth behind what they are doing. For example, most of the time when people are talking about, rejecting Christianity, rejecting Jesus, it's not necessarily explained in such a way of like, oh, I hate God or something. Of course, I think there are people that, say that, but it's always, covered up. And I think some people do sort of believe some of the stuff that they're saying as far as the reasons why they're rejecting God. I'm not necessarily saying everyone is sort of, outright just, pretending to say something else when they mean something different. But, it seems like, people in general say like, oh, I believe that, we got here from a big bang. And, they have these different things of like, hey, we can't know, if Jesus is the creator, or, hey, I believe in Buddhism, or I believe in, this other religion here. And, what my point is that it seems like in the future, it becomes some of the things that, especially when people start inventing certain things, some of the lie really breaks down. And so, not that people, when they recognize that the lie is sort of breaking down, I don't think they, repent of that. No, they will just straight up in your face tell you, I'm rejecting God for the very reason of, hating God or wanting to serve Satan, or I love my sin. I love the evil that, I'm a part of. And so that's the other thing that I wanted to say. Now, transitioning to a similar but different topic, which is involving artificial intelligence. One of the things that I thought of was sometimes human contact is sort of being separated And the internet, I think there's plenty of examples of this today, but I think this may become more apparent in the future. I don't know if this is what I'm about to say is fully happening right now, but sometimes we may really be interacting with a robot in a way, and not necessarily real people. And I think, what I'm really saying is that, sometimes when maybe making a comment on YouTube or something, and we only see maybe the title of a person, but, you don't really know if it's a real person. I mean, even there's examples of people getting robocalls that, obviously there's a person behind it, but, when you answer the phone, it sounds like a real person, but it's really just a robot who somebody just input, what they wanted the robot to say. And so when I thought about this in terms of evangelism, I think I really thought of this when I made a comment on a video, and I received a reply to that video, but the reply was not necessarily in agreement with what I had to say. It was more in opposition of what I had to say. And when I saw that, it just sparked the thought within me that, it's possible that, how do I even know a real person is behind this comment? And when you think about how, I know this is getting into a little bit of a conspiracy type thing, and I don't necessarily try to deal with those types of, conspiracy stuff, but it's possible that, we don't really know who we're talking to. And when you think about artificial intelligence and, how, especially on the internet, it seems like, there's no real verification that you're talking to a real person. I mean, when you look at maybe even videos, video, you assume that, you're talking to a person when you look at them through the camera, maybe like on Zoom or different things like that. But, they're creating artificial intelligence in such a way that you can even pull up a Zoom account, and if you maybe have not seen that person in real life, then you don't really know. It's possible, at least, saying that you don't even know if who you're talking to is a real person. And I think there are some great points with technology. I'm not an anti-technology type of person, but some of this stuff that is coming out in these new technologies is sort of also geared up to make a person kind of crazy. When you think about it, like you have people, creating images that aren't real, and people, I think, already struggle with the concept of trying to understand that there is a God, and trying to piece together all these different dynamics of life, as far as reality is concerned. And then you have these people creating these different things on the internet that aren't even real, but they are made to look real. And I'm like, wow, people are creating this stuff, and it's like, this can make a person really question reality, even in spaces that are not meant for questioning reality. Now, obviously, we engage in different entertainment that, it's obvious that, we are trying to portray maybe some sort of scenery or something that is not necessarily our reality. But, there's a strong connection to when people see something in sci-fi and in movies that is not yet real, or not yet a possibility. There are people who really try to do these things, and it is actually, sometimes you see something and it's supposed to be as sometimes I think of it, it's supposed to be something that is sort of entertaining. It's supposed to be something that is fun to watch or kind of a thriller. But then you really see that there is a reality side of some of this stuff that people are putting out where, it gets kind of crazy. And, you know, it really brings you back to the Bible about, people are really serving Satan even when they are claiming to be a neutral party within, the world. Even if they're claiming, I don't serve Jesus, but, I don't, really partake of any religion, I'm just sort of in the middle. Well, what Jesus has explained is that, hey, if you're not for him, you are against him. And, you cannot be in the middle. And so something is influencing you, irregardless of if you realize it or not. Some people are more aware of it, and, I guess they're more evil than not. But yet, going back to evangelism, one of the things that I wanted to say, even for, internet evangelism, is that, for those who are Christians, sometimes, these computers can be blocking our videos and it not be getting out, and I think YouTube is doing that already, even though, sure, I can understand that, you do have to maybe, do a little bit of something to get your video out, like tags or, making the right title or, putting something in the description. But one of the things that I think is sort of the darker side of the internet is that it's possible that someone can control who sees your video, and doing that in such a way that you actually have no idea that no one is necessarily seeing your video. Now, I highly doubt some of that is happening, just because, there are plenty of videos that I see on the internet that, I can actually see that person, in reality, in person. And so I'm just saying, I do think it's somewhat happening, as far as I noticed that on YouTube, you can never get some suggested videos that you never really even knew existed, unless you are maybe searching for something similar, or, happen to be, maybe, watching another video that is sort of, similar to a video that they can sort of suggest. And so I think, obviously, in maybe a not really direct way, this thing is already going on, even though, it doesn't seem to be really malicious as right now, as far as, them blocking videos and different things like that. We know, that YouTube sort of works where, they sort of just push videos that they think that you would be interested in. But, when you talk about evangelism, what if they are blocking maybe Christian videos from actually reaching people that it could impact, for the better? And I think that, there are some great parts about the internet. And, I'm not saying this is already happening now. I think this is one of those topics that, I don't know if we could ever really find out for sure, other than, there's already in the news and different things like that about, there is public concern. I mean, even, Facebook and different companies are concerned, at least, about, labeling fake images, so they have some sort of way of controlling, what is fake and what is real. And so I think that there are a lot of people who are concerned about, making sure there is some sort of safeguards in place. But then again, if they really take this whole robotics thing to, where it could go, we've already seen plenty of videos where you can be talking to a person and you could be talking to a robot and you don't even know if they are a real person or not. And I think this is just sort of an interesting dynamic when it comes to Christian evangelism, because, this is one of the centerpieces of being a Christian, is sort of, sharing your faith with others. It's what we call one of the great commissions that, we say that Jesus is really giving the church. And so when you talk about how we can be impeded by a computer, I think that this is where, I think street preachers are great. Even though I do sometimes have my own personal convictions or concerns about street preaching, but when you talk about some of these things that are going on with the internet, I think there is a great need for street preachers, because we need to get the message out in person, and have Bibles handed out in real hands, because, I think the internet is great, but at the same time, they keep creating more and more things that I believe really make a lot of things detrimental. And obviously, there are already many things on the internet that are very bad in regards to pornography, in regards to different things that are just not helpful to us as, a society. But, we get into a whole other topic when talking about some of this other stuff. But, it used to be that talking about robotics had the same kind of connotation, same type of reaction as talking about aliens. And, that sort of feeling comes up even when talking about robotics. But yet, and still, you see that, robotics are coming, out, and it's, becoming more of a reality. And we already have sort of the projections on different videos that I think we once viewed as sort of entertaining, but yet you see that there is sort of a kind of prediction type of a reality to some of these videos that we would almost classify as just pure entertainment. And so I think this really shows of, the bigger story that's, really going on. And I think a lot of this stuff we don't need to really waste our time in concerning ourselves with. At the same time, I do think there is a place to, evangelize and speak a message and give warnings. And obviously, we, the church, are, doing our best to, help reach people. But, ultimately, we do need to trust God in different things like this. And I don't think it's really important to, at this point in time, maybe concern ourselves with, oh, am I talking to a robot or is this a real person? I think there comes a point where, we also trust. I, for one, hold the position that, it's so true what God says in His Word that, His creation speaks about Him. I do think that obviously, there is a place for telling people about Jesus, and then obviously Jesus needed to come to tell others about God and Himself. But, at the same time, there are many ways that God is speaking to us, and He even speaks to us in our heart and in our conscience. But, I think these are things that are, sort of concerning in some ways. But at the same time, one of the things that I think, that I will end this podcast on is that, comparing some time periods to us today, I think one of the time periods we can sort of compare ourselves to in regards to even just the concept of new technologies coming out, if we compare ourselves to the Tower of Babel, we can really see how once there was a shift in, something in regards to humanity, it seemed as if God stepped in, or he really, obviously God is working all the time, but at least in the specific story of Tower of Babel, it seemed like God stepped in to act on our behalf, for one, but also, in opposition to those that were doing wrong. And so I think that one of the things that we can really expect from God is to push back against where the world is headed to. And ultimately, we know that God is planning on making a new heavens and a new earth where righteousness dwells. And so, I think, on one hand, we do need to push back on some level, but then on other hand, we need to wait for God to act. And, one of the other points that I wanted to make, that I was making in the beginning of this podcast, is that I think on one hand also, we're waiting on God to push back. We are, as Christians, are pushing back, but I believe what the world creates, I think, pushes back on itself. And I think that through different things that the world is creating, they are really advancing the knowledge of God in some form. They are really showing that God is real, and it may not be in a recognizable way to them, but to us, I think some of these things can really preach a message about how God is real and God is the creator. And this is all, I think, very interesting. And so hopefully you found this podcast helpful. I'm not so much a person that's saying, oh, I'm not going to, post on YouTube anymore because, what if I'm just interacting with a robot? I was just trying to share, something that came to my mind. And I also wanted to share the scenario of how, in a video game, when you're fighting a computer, it seems like you can almost never win. And when I saw these comments on one of the comments that I made in a Christian, it was a sort of a Christian type of post. And, I had some opposition against the comment that I made. And so sometimes I wonder, like, did they train these computers, these artificial intelligence, to reject God and reject the message of the Bible? Because I think if it was true artificial intelligence, it would say that Jesus is Lord. But what do I know? I'm not a programmer, computer programmer, but sometimes when you get some sort of comment on YouTube, you can sort of wonder, like, wow, is this a real person? Or, is this some sort of artificial intelligence that is sort of, trying to pretend like it's a real person and commenting, negatively towards my comment. And, but I, obviously not going to really think about that too much and still going to comment. But thanks so much for checking this out, and I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.